Welcome back to the Tara Palmeri Show. I know it's been Epstein, but it's not just on this show. It's everywhere. It's in Washington. It's all anyone can really talk about. The vote is coming. It will be next week. Mike Johnson is scrambling to keep his caucus in line, but every single day he loses another vote. Another Republican member looks to his constituents and realizes that he cannot vote against releasing the Epstein files. But in the meantime, a very important cultural figure in the MAGA movement, Megyn Kelly, once a foe of President Trump, said that it wasn't very strange what Jeffrey Epstein was up to. She said that, he wasn't a pedophile, actually. Crazy enough. She says Jeffrey Epstein was not a pedophile. He was into the barely legal type. Like he liked 15-year-olds. There's a difference between a 15-year-old and a 5-year-old. I am recapping what she said, but I'll give you a flavor here.
As for Epstein, I've said this before, but just as a reminder, I do know somebody very, very close to this case who is in a position to know virtually everything. Not everything, but virtually everything. And this person has told me from the start, years and years ago, that Jeffrey Epstein, in this person's view, was not a pedophile. This is this person's view, who was there for a lot of this, but that he was into the barely legal type. Like he liked 15-year-old girls. And I realize this is disgusting. I'm definitely not trying to make an excuse for this. I'm just giving you facts. That he wasn't into like 8-year-olds, but he liked the very young teen types that could pass for even younger than they were, but would look legal to a passerby. We have yet to see anybody come forward and say, I was I was under 10, I was under 14 when I first came within his purview. You can say that's a distinction without a difference.
Now, that is Megyn Kelly today, now that she is fully a part of the MAGA movement. This is not the same Megyn Kelly who believed at one time that President Trump possibly poisoned her before the debate, in which he said there was blood coming out of her eyes. No one can forget that debate. Back in 2018, when she was working for NBC, she said there is no consent for a 14 or even a 17-year-old. I mean, she should know. She is a trained attorney, right? Megyn Kelly, of all people, should know the law. Although when Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, is accused of taking $50,000 in a kava bag in exchange for, some sort of political influence, some sort of favor in his new job, she says that's no big deal, as if she doesn't know the law. Well, I just want to break it down for Megyn Kelly, because I have done years and years of reporting on this Epstein story for the Broken Seeking Justice podcast, Power the Maxwells, and I have listened to the tapes from the survivors, from those girls that Joseph Recarey, the detective in Palm Beach, and Police Chief Michael Ryder spoke to. And these are 14-year-olds like Courtney Wild, who showed up on his doorstep with braces on. And they sound like children. One of those 14-year-olds literally called his penis a wee-wee. Okay? I want you to listen to some of the tapes of these girls. Take a listen here.
He had a cook that was there, and he had, there was like 2 other girls that I guess lived with him.
Who were you introduced to?
One of his girlfriends, one of his, slaves that he has lived with him. And when I say slaves, one of the girls that he bought to, have sex with him.
You cannot tell me that these girls were allowed to consent or were able to consent with a then 52-year-old wealthy man who was running a pyramid scheme out of their high school. And these were poor girls who, to them, $200, $300 was more than their parents were making in a week. This is probably one of the craziest arguments I have heard out there, by the way. It really is. I mean, really, Megyn? You know the law. You know and morality. You have a daughter. It blows my mind. And that is why I had to start with this on the show, because I thought I just think if you have that sort of platform, you have to be more responsible. I don't know what sort of grip that President Trump has on her to even make that kind of argument. I mean, crimes against children are bipartisan. People are against them. But yeah, this is another episode of a show that I was on. I'm being asked to go on a lot of different shows right now to present my expertise on this topic. I went on last night with Julia K. Brown, who is the executive producer of the podcast Broken Seeking Justice. And we had some technical difficulties in the beginning, and I wasn't able to chime in right away. But it was a really great conversation if you stick with it. And obviously, Julie deserves a lot of credit for being one of the few journalists to dig into that sweetheart deal and into the grave injustice that happened in Florida. Without her, we wouldn't know. People wouldn't know what happened. And every single day, these emails, these 19,000 emails that people are pouring through right now, 20,000 emails, they just keep linking President Trump and Epstein even more and more and more. And they show Epstein's obsession with Trump. I mean, he clearly knew a lot about his finances and his accounting. And, Epstein was giving apparently accounting services to people like Mark Rowan at Apollo. Maybe he was doing the same for Trump. I mean, they seem to be very intimately involved from the level of information that he claimed to have on Epstein. I still can't believe that he was trying to advise world leaders like Putin on how to manipulate President Trump and claiming that he had dirt on him, dirt like that he was sitting, on the counter in his house with girls. And all this time, the White House has said President Trump kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. Turns out from the emails, Epstein was never a member. Everything the White House says about Jeffrey Epstein and President Trump's relationship cannot be considered valid because there is an omerta in the White House. They aren't even allowed to talk to President Trump about it. He is so sensitive about it. The stories keep changing over and over and over again. He claims he was never in Epstein's home. We see that that's not the case. Also, I know from my interview with Brad Edwards that Trump had admitted that he had gone to Epstein's house, but thought it was strange to see all these girls that Epstein said were a part of a Big Brother, Big Sister program. There is so much more that we don't even know yet. Tip of the iceberg, like I keep saying. So take a listen to this interview. I hope you keep learning more and more by sticking with my channel. And of course, go to tarapalmeri.com. It's where you can get my exclusive independent journalism straight to your inbox by signing up for the Red Letter. It's also a way to support my independent journalism. I am working on so many different pieces right now. It's been a lot. I am churning it out, but these are the moments when change happens. So take a listen here.
Julie Brown's a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative journalist for the Miami Herald who wrote the book on Jeffrey Epstein, literally. Tara Palmeri is the author of the Red Letter Substack, who's been covering the story incredibly extensively. They join me now. Julie, I want to start with you as just someone who's as immersed in the reporting and the context of this as anyone, to get your reaction to a few of these emails. Particularly the one in which Epstein says that a victim, which was later revealed by the White House to be Virginia Giuffre, because they unredacted it, was at Epstein's house with Epstein and Trump for hours. What do you make of that?
It's a little broken up.
Julie, that's for you.
Yes. Well, it's hard to understand because a lot of these emails are not in context. They're out of order, and we don't have the context of what he's talking about when he says that. We also know that Virginia has been quite public in both in her testimony in court and in her memoir that was published after her death, that she never encountered any inappropriate behavior from Trump. So if in fact she is the person that is mentioned, it seems to be almost a red flag that there's a problem here because there's no indication that she had been abused by Trump.
Yeah, and I also think it's worth talking here about taking Epstein's claims themselves with some sort of grain of salt skepticism. Just because he's deceased and he wrote an email doesn't mean that it's true. I mean, the guy was kind of notoriously a liar. But I do want to ask again about that the thing he says to Michael Wolff, which again, to me, this is the place where it seems the hardest to come to a charitable interpretation, which is, of course, he knew about the girls. He asked Ghislaine to stop. And that seems to sync up with stories that we've heard that at some point he told, don't poach people from Mar-a-Lago, but also seems to indicate that, like, Trump kind of knew what Jeffrey Epstein was up to. What do you think of that?
Well, look at the sheer number of times that Trump's names are in this email. I mean, we counted over 2,700 times that Trump's name is mentioned in these emails. Now, some of them are duplicative. It's hard to measure them because they're just in so many different places. But his name appears, Trump's name appears more than anybody else's in these emails. So you have to wonder why Trump is so dominant in these emails, particularly since the time frame of these emails starts in 2011 through Epstein's arrest in 2019. So this is a time when Epstein's relationship with Trump was waning. I think what we really need to see are all the emails pre-2011, right, at the time when we know that they had a relationship. And we have asked the House Oversight Committee whether they obtained those earlier emails and calendars from the estate. And we haven't really gotten a straight answer about whether I think they've asked for everything, but we don't know whether maybe that this is coming, whether they're expecting more, or whether this is it, because really the key time period is pre-2011 with Trump, not right, post-2011.
Tara, that email about the dog that didn't bark is striking to me, is maybe the most striking for a few reasons. One, it's Epstein talking to Ghislaine Maxwell. So he's not talking to a reporter or someone that presumably he's trying to kind of like perform for or BS. He's like, that seems like a much more sort of confidential relationship. It's also the closest time-wise to the end of that relation, to whatever happened between him and Trump in terms of friendship, and him also getting ultimately prosecuted and then slapped on the wrist. What do you make of the dog that didn't bark as Trump email?
I mean, it suggests that they know something about President Trump, and they are surprised that it hasn't been revealed. And as we know, they were very close with Trump, not just during a decade. I mean, Ghislaine Maxwell knew him for decades through her father, the media mogul Robert Maxwell, back to when she was in her 20s. And, one of the first things she said in her interview with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche was that she had never seen Donald Trump behaving inappropriately around women. And as you can see from this email, that directly contradicts it. They're speaking as people, confidants who know each other, not thinking that their emails are ever going to be read, right, or on TV or anywhere for that matter. So I don't know why they would be bluffing each other for whatever reason, conspiracy theorists will try to say at this point. But it's, it's shocking because it directly refutes, her testimony, which I don't understand why she even had a chance to have that moment as a charged perjurer and a convicted sex offender. And then seeing from that moment, her moved over to a prison camp where she can get a puppy. I mean, it's absurd. And I think it makes it really difficult for the president to continue to say, like, comments that are like, I wish her well, or I haven't thought about her in a while. It's so obvious that they had a very long relationship and that she's not some random woman that will be asking for a commutation. She's a person that has been in his life for decades, that he has a long-standing relationship with, to the point where he said Ghislaine has to stop what she's doing at the club. What did she do at the club? Recruit Virginia Giuffre.
Julie, there's this other exchange where Jeffrey Epstein's writing to, I believe, a New York Times reporter who was, my understanding was fired from the New York Times in 2019 because he had solicited a $30,000 donation to a pre-K from Jeffrey Epstein. And he sends this email saying, this is during the 2016 campaign, if I'm not mistaken, Would you like photos of Donald and girls in bikinis in my kitchen? Now, subsequently, that reporter says those emails were never sent. And I should also note here, a thing that I think is a little confusing and also really disgusting is that Epstein uses the term girls for like women and girls in ranging in age from like actual girls who are 13 or 14 up to 22. So when he says girls, you're not quite sure which one he's talking about. But it does seem like Epstein's suggesting like, I do have some goods on him, or I have evidence of whatever he used to get up to. What do you think?
Well, I think that Epstein had dirt on everybody, quite frankly. I mean, I think he used that as his currency. And we don't know the extent of the information that he had on Trump, but he was friends with them for a long time. And we've seen the videos of him partying with Trump. And we just know that they were close at one time. So inevitably, he has some information about Trump that maybe isn't all that becoming of him. And we don't, like I said, we don't really know what that is, but he does enough in these emails to lead people to believe that he sort of has the goods on him. Yeah. And that is sort of like a bait that he uses for these reporters, yes. Like, and others like Michael Wolff to keep coming back to him and saying, tell me more, tell me more. And he's sort of like, trying to lure them in and dangle this kind of information in front of them.
Finally, quickly to you, Tara, do you think there's more to learn in the full DOJ files that they're pushing to release?
Absolutely. I mean, these aren't even the files. These are just emails from the estate. The files will show the depositions of the 1,000 victims that the FBI says, as many as 1,000 victims. If they are actually unredacted, it will show the names of the perpetrators. As Pam Bondi says, there were no, John Does, but that contradicts everything that the victims have said, that there were other men involved. And it would expose the full trafficking ring and why he got this sweetheart deal. So there's so much more to know. Well, there's so much more to know.
Julie's point, and the one I'm looking for is like, I want to see everything about that 2007, 2008, what went down with that Department of Justice and Alex Acosta and how he ended up getting away with the slap on the wrist. That's what I'm most laser focused on. Julie Brown, Tara Palmeri, thank you both.
That was another episode of the Tara Palmeri Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can rate, subscribe, comment, share this with all of your friends. This is a community. You can support my independent journalism by going to tarapalmeri.com. That's TARAPALMERI.com. Only one I, and signing up for the Red Letter. That is my newsletter where you can get my exclusive reporting straight to your inbox. And if you become a paid subscriber, you can support my independent journalism and get exclusive access and reporting. I want to thank my producer, Eric Abinate. I want to thank Abby Baker, who is handling social media, research, reporting, and Adam Stewart, who is handling the graphics, and Dan Rosen, who is helping me with my growth. It is happening so quickly. Thanks to all of you. We are just getting started here. See you again tomorrow.